When working in Substance Designer, you'll notice that a lot of the shapes we are using or that we use to create our texture maps are always in a 2D, almost like you're working in a top-down view. For example, all the different shapes and patterns that we're giving in the shape node, you can tell they're almost like we're looking at it from a top-down angle. Now, let's say we wanted to give this shape some three-dimensionality to it. For example, kind of like if we were to model a cube and we scattered it all over a plane and baked that down, we would get some really nice contours and some really nice height information. So to do that inside of Substance Designer, if we wanted to take a flat 2D image and make it 3D, we are going to use the Shape Extrude node. So we can just type in Shape Extrude. And instantly we're gonna get something like this. By default, the shape that we're given when we first plot down the Shape Extrude node is a cylinder. So we can actually move around we can grab this little widget and we can start moving around the 2D view, and you can kind of start seeing and rotate the actual shape that we're given. So the cylinder is one of them. We can also do a cube, same thing. We're able to move this little widget around and we're giving some three-dimensionality to this. But one of the coolest things that we can do is you have the capability of doing a custom input, kind of how we talked about in the tile sampler in the previous video. So we can actually plot in any sort of shape we want. So if we were to take, let's actually do, let's see, a pyramid maybe. Yeah, so we're just gonna do a pyramid, plug this in, and instantly you'll see that this pyramid has now been made into a 3D kind of shape. We can mess with the scale of it. We can mess with the extrude height, so that extrudes it in or out. We can mess with the depth, and that is kind of the endpoint to the 3D shape. So we get a lot of cool options when we're using this node. We can still mess with the bevel, the height as well with the bevel, and the bevel curve. So there are a few other different settings that we can play in here. So if we were to choose a vertical gradient for our profile, you'll notice that instantly the shape disappears. That's because the Shape Extrude is looking for a gradient to input here. So let's actually, let me see if we can, yes, let's do a star really quick because that's a really cool shape that we can kind of see what's going on with the Shape Extrude. So first off, we're gonna plot down a gradient because that's what it's looking for. So we're just gonna do a linear gradient. So right now, and you'll kind of see what is going on. So from here, this is the basic shape we get, but once we start turning it a bit, you'll notice that it's giving us this kind of profile where the white is almost starting to peek in, whereas the black is the basic shape of it. So one way to get some more variety inside of your gradient, we can actually plot down a curve in here. We could plug in the gradient and plug this in. Now from here with the curve, we can actually start plotting in some points here. So we can start moving some stuff kind of crazy. We can plot like this stuff. We can even move this one over here. And now we're getting something where you're almost drawing the profile of the actual shape. If we were to take this almost like looking on a 2D plane, you can kind of see this kind of profile as we're drawing it. This is kind of the shape that we're getting on here. So this gives you a lot of control of kind of the shape that you want, and it gives you some really cool and interesting results. The last profile type we can actually choose is a mask. So with a mask, we can actually create it's almost like this curve, but we can create a profile in the 2D view. So let's actually just make a profile really quickly by combining a few different shapes. So let's just take a square and we're going to squash it down on this side. And we are going to do a transform. Let's move this over here. We're going to take off the tiling because we're only going to use one side of this. So we're just going to move it over here. And let's do another transform. Let's move this one over here. Let's squash it down even more so. Let's make it a cool angle. Let's do a blend here and blend this and then add, and then we're just gonna move this up here really quick. So we have kind of a cool silhouette going on here. So what we can do now is actually plug in this shape. And what's going to happen is that almost the same kind of scenario that we had with the curve node, or sorry, with the curve input, is we're getting the exact same shape that we're doing inside the input for the profile mask. Is it's being created inside the 3D view. So again, this gives you a little bit more control on how you want to create your mask. Both ways can easily achieve both different effects. It's up to you which one you rather use. So once we have something like this, we can easily go into the tile sampler that we talked about in the first video. We can just plug in an input, and we could do pattern input, just like so. Let's just do 5 and 5, and let's just plug this in and see what kind of effect it gives us. So instantly you kind of see that we're getting a little bit more three-dimensionality to our shapes instead of a boring kind of, if we were to just plug in this star shape, we have something a little bit cooler to look at, and then we can actually go in. What's cool is that because it is a live node, we can actually just click on it and then kind of start manipulating what kind of sort of angle that we want inside of our texture. So that's the basics of the Shape Extrude node. We talked a little bit about the curve node, so let's dive into that one real quick.